So, we're looking at a summary of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It really focuses on that core contrast, between a job and actually acquiring assets.
Right, and it does a great job laying out the basics. The asset-liability distinction, the rat race metaphor, it's all very clear.
It is. It's a fantastic foundation.
But I think for the audience this is aimed at, we need to go a bit deeper, past the summary and into more of a critical engagement with the ideas themselves.
I see what you mean. It presents Kiyosaki's ideas very well, but almost too well. It takes them as gospel.
Exactly, and a technical reader is going to see the holes there, which I think brings us to our first major opportunity. The summary would benefit significantly from integrating a positively framed layer of constructive skepticism around Kiyosaki's core definitions.
To show that critical engagement you mentioned.
Yes.
So the weakness right now is how it presents things like assets versus liabilities from, chapter 3?
Mm-hmm.
It treats them as these hard, binary truths. The big one being that your house is not an asset.
Right. Unequivocally a liability.
And while that's central to Kiyosaki's behavioral point, it misses the chance to, acknowledge other contexts. It might come off as a little simplistic to a more sophisticated reader.
It really does. Because the second you state something is that black and white in finance, an expert reader immediately thinks of 5 exceptions.
Like tax shielding on capital gains, or just the stability a home provides to pursue other ventures.
Exactly. They see nuance where the summary is presenting a hard rule.
That's a fair point, but isn't the shock value of calling a house a liability sort of the whole point? If we immediately muddy the waters with caveats, do we risk, watering down that core message about consumption?
I hear that, but this piece is for an audience that's, frankly, past the shock value stage. They get the basics. For them, ignoring the complexity makes the summary seem philosophically a bit naive.
Okay, so what's the suggestion?
The suggestion is to just introduce a brief, constructive qualification right after stating the principle.
So you're not refuting him, you're just showing that you understand the bigger picture.
Precisely. It elevates the summary from a report into a real analysis.
Got it. So give me a concrete example.
Okay, so when you're talking about rental properties being an asset, the summary explains it perfectly. But right after that, you could add a line, a question, like, that's clearly laid out. I wonder, though, if we've considered the necessary scale for an asset like that to truly overcome property taxes, maintenance, and, vacancy rates.
Ah, I like that. That little addition shows instant sophistication. It doesn't undermine the point, it just acknowledges the real-world execution challenges.
It shows you've thought it through. And you could do the same thing with the whole poor dad security versus rich dad risk idea.
Right, from chapter 1?
Yeah, instead of just saying one is good and one is bad, maybe you introduce the idea of acceptable loss.
So asking a deeper question about what you need to have in place before you can take those kinds of risks.
Exactly. You could pose it as, is Kiyosaki's framework universally applicable? Or does it assume a certain level of financial stability to withstand those early losses? It just frames the whole thing in a much more intellectually honest way.
That's a really powerful shift. Okay, let's move on. I think there's a structural point to be made here as well, about the flow.
Oh, definitely. All the right information is here. It's just the sequencing is delaying the big aha moment.
Right. So to improve the flow and deliver that high-value information earlier, the discussion of the rules of the rich, particularly the role of the corporation, should be integrated much sooner.
Yes, 1,000%. The weakness is that this really powerful, unique content about corporate tax strategy.
The stuff from chapter 5.
Yeah, using a corporation as a legal tax shelter, that gets buried so late in the summary. It comes after the rat race, after the childhood comic book story.
And that's arguably the most actionable takeaway in the whole book. The idea that you can deduct cars, insurance, travel.
It is, but it feels disconnected from the core asset liability definition that comes so much earlier.
It's like we're defining the problem, then the solution, but we bury the main tool you use to implement the solution.
That's the perfect way to put it.
But hold on, that corporate tax material is, well, it's pretty dense. It's chapter 5 for a reason. If we shove that right into the middle of the basic cash flow diagrams from chapter 3, do we risk overwhelming the reader?
It is a leap. I'll grant you that. It's a leap in complexity.
A pretty big one.
But I think it's a necessary one.
Because the corporation is the essential tool Rich Dad uses. If you just define the problem as negative cash flow and say buy assets, the sophisticated reader is left thinking, okay, but how?
So the suggestion is to reframe it. The corporation isn't some separate legal topic. It's the mechanism you use to change the cash flows.
You got it. You introduce the corporation's role right after you explain cash flow in Chapter 3.
You're protecting and maximizing the assets.
Yes, you show the why of financial literacy early. It makes everything that follows, all the different types of assets, feel so much more concrete and actionable. It sets the hook.
Okay, so we show the income and balance sheet diagrams. We show how the cash flow works against you. And then, bam, right there, we introduce the mechanism the rich use to reverse it.
That's it. You just need a little bridge sentence. Something like, building on that point, what if we looked at how legal structures, like the corporation Kiyosaki talks about, fundamentally change the flow of those numbers by letting you pay expenses before taxes?
Wow, yeah, that's a phenomenal bridge. It connects two totally separate chapters into one cohesive strategy.
And to really nail it down, you could even mention the anecdote about paying for legitimate business expenses early. The cars, the travel.
Right, so you provide immediate context for why this stuff matters so much more than just getting a raise. It's about playing by different rules.
And you're showing them the rule book right at the beginning, not hiding it at the end.
That's a huge structural improvement. It tightens the whole argument.
It really improves the pacing.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit, let's talk about engagement. I mean, the reason that book is so famous is the storytelling, right? The two dads, the anecdotes.
Definitely. And I feel like the summary is maybe a little too dry. It loses that punch.
I was noticing that too, which leads to the next point. The summary, while it's accurate, should more actively leverage the compelling, specific anecdotes Kiyosaki uses to illustrate his points.
Yes. The weakness is so clear here. It summarizes the lesson like, most people work hard to pay bills, instead of using the story that makes that lesson stick.
It becomes theoretical. You lose the emotional core that makes the book so memorable in the first place.
And his whole method is about making finance emotionally resonant. He uses stories. So the suggestion is just to make sure those abstract points are always reinforced by the most vivid character or scenario from the book.
So when we explain the rat race, we don't just sketch the diagram.
No, you immediately talk about who is in it.
Sarah.
You talk about Sarah, the lawyer making $250,000 a year who just keeps buying a bigger house, nicer cars.
And digging a deeper liability trap for herself.
Right. That specific image of the highly paid professional who's still stuck, that's way more powerful than just an abstract definition of cash flow.
Especially for this audience, they probably know a Sarah. It makes it personal.
It makes it real. And it's the same thing with the section on overcoming obstacles in Chapter 6. Right now, it's just
generic. Fear of losing money.
It's passive. We need a specific behavioral failure.
Exactly. You have to use the example of Susan.
The writer with the master's degree completely recoiled when someone suggested she take a sales course. Her fear wasn't about the market. It was about her professional identity, her dignity.
And that's such a core idea in the book that academic intelligence doesn't equal financial intelligence. Susan's story grounds that concept in a really relatable way.
It proves the obstacle isn't external. It's internal. It's in your mind. And one more, the learning by doing part.
With the comic book library?
Yeah, don't just mention it. The focus has to be on the system. The fact that it made $950 a week because they hired Mike's sister to run it.
That's their first real taste of being business owners, not employees, even on that tiny scale.
Exactly. Use those names, Sarah, Susan, Mike. Make them the center of the lesson. It just transforms the whole piece from a dry outline into a compelling story.
You're saying the content is all there. It just needs to adopt the voice and the delivery method of the source material itself.
That's it. That narrative engagement is what's going to make this thing sing.
Okay, this is great. This gives us 3 really clear, actionable suggestions. So first, integrate that constructive nuance into the core definitions, asset versus liability, to show critical engagement.
Right. Second, resequence the corporate tax discussion. Bring that Chapter 5 material up right after the cash flow problem in Chapter 3, frame it as the essential tool.
And third, actively use the specific character anecdotes. Use Sarah the attorney, Susan the writer, to make all those abstract lessons feel concrete and memorable.
You've built a really strong foundation here, and I think these challenges are really just opportunities for major growth. I mean, financial intelligence is about conquering those internal barriers, right? That's what he says in Chapter 6. These shifts will make the material not just accurate, but robust and deeply engaging for any expert reader.
We are really looking forward to seeing how you refine the summary based on this. Please send the improved version back to us for a follow-up. Until then, keep questioning the cash flow.